Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about Aries Relationships Part 2. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Many of you may remember, or some of you may remember anyway, that I did a series on the zodiac signs and relationships. And I was basically talking about how the zodiac signs acted in more specific relationships based on probable signs on the house cusp in a chart for a solar natal chart for the 12 zodiac signs. But in this one, it's just more generic, and I'm going to talk about just how they generally act in relationships to the zodiac signs. So anyway, well, as far as Aries goes, first thing is as far as they are in relationships, well, Aries, as many of you may know, is fundamentally impatient, and this, of course, can apply to how they can act in relationships. Now, if a relationship seems to be too monotonous, boring, mundane, if it lacks some kind of excitement, they may end it as quickly as it began. Now, Aries also, given that they can be so impatient and also very action-oriented, they could also come back from the end or a termination of one relationship and start a new one shortly after one is eradicated or ended. Now, Aries, of course, is a sign that has a lot of initiative and enterprise. They will often be the first ones in the starting process of a relationship, whether it is outwardly showing the interest first or what have you. Now, thing about Aries too in relationships. Now, if Aries gets into an argument with someone that they have a close friendship or relationship, if it's a significant other situation or whatever, they often may be the first to apologize. Now, Aries is not, of course, I mean, they're not known to be vengeful or vindictive, and they're not one to dwell in the past. They're not one to hold a protracted grudge for too long. Now, many of you may have remembered that John Lennon, legendary musician John Lennon, had an Aries ascendant. And best of my knowledge, he had taken, at least there's some reports that he had taken a brick or something, threw it at Paul McCartney's window one time at his home, I believe. And I believe, I mean, I'm sure shortly afterwards, I mean, being an Aries ascendant, he probably reconciled with him. I mean, Aries can really be, I mean, of all the zodiac signs, probably the most hot-tempered and quick-tempered of all of them, but they often have a forgive and forget philosophy on things. Now, Aries, being a masculine sign, I mean, they're often more extroverted than introverted. They could be very active and energetic, and they may like to do things with others that are often sports related and may often be interested in more combative sports such as wrestling, mixed martial arts, boxing, fencing, karate, for example. Now, Aries also may not want to do anything that is overly or exceptionally time-consuming with someone. They are very, of course, impulsive, impetuous, and impatient. And even in their relationships, they can often want to escalate the relationship quicker than most. They could be very, I mean, they might be a little bit too pushy for a more, say, methodical or deliberate Sun, Moon, or Ascendant in Taurus. Now, and they also may want to go into marriage quicker than most and taking that next step in a relationship, so to speak. Now, as I stated before, they can, if they end a relationship abruptly, they can embark on another one quickly. Aries generally is not one known for procrastination or hesitation or wasting much time in anything, and that includes relationships as well. Aries often will live each day like it is their last, more so I think than the other signs on average. They are just so full of life and full of energy. And Aries may only, I mean, they're full of enthusiasm, often and very energetic. And they may, and it's another thing about Aries too, and how they can act. They can also, they could be the kind of people that may only respect you if you are a person that will stand up for yourself and perhaps to them and for them. Aries will often stand up for themselves and for their close friends and also the significant other, often when others may just kind of not really really want to get involved, or others that will say it's not my problem or whatever. When others will cower, Aries will fight and combat. Now, really, there was one time, and going back to them, the thing about Aries, when a lot of Aries, I think, will only respect you, really, if you will stay, sometimes when you stand up to them. If you really, if you don't, then you could be in a lot of trouble, because Aries can often have an anathema to weakness, and people that are weak in character, that are overly docile, passive, or submissive in temperament. Now, I can remember there was a time when I got into it one time. It was in high school with somebody that was a Leo sun and Aries ascendant, and true story, he this guy, and he was a little bit shorter than me, and I guess he was just acting, to me, in my opinion, a little bit too big for his britches, so to speak, a little bit arrogant and cocky, and he, just needling me or whatever, and saying just stupid, unprovoked stuff on and off to me. Finally, I just had about all I can take from this person, and I just finally got in his face about some stuff and what he was doing in it, and shortly after that I didn't have any more issues with him. So imagine that, right? But the thing about it is, the point I'm making is, with Aries people, sometimes that's the only way you may get respect from them, is if you have to stand up to them from time to time. Aries, unfortunately, can be somewhat abrasive, and they're not always the most easygoing people. They are not, I understand, they're not a fixed sign, they're a cardinal sign, but still, even some, cardinal signs can be a little difficult. Even Capricorn can be a little bit difficult, I think, because Capricorn is very single-minded, and they're and can actually be somewhat intransigent and one-sided. So even though it is a cardinal sign. But anyway, the thing about Aries too in relationships, you got to understand, when they're communicating, they generally are not going to suppress or hold back in conversation. They are not generally malicious people. They just want to often get to the heart of the matter quick. They're not ones really generally because they're so outspoken and forthright. They're generally not ones to mince words or talk in a subtle manner, or I would say cryptic code. They're not about being ambiguous. When they say something, it's going to often be in a very direct and concise, quick manner. Now, if you're a sensitive type, say if you have the sun, moon, or ascendant in Cancer or Pisces, well, you might have a little bit difficulty dealing with Aries. Remember, there's a reason why the zodiac sign Cancer is square to Aries, and Pisces often falls on the 12th house cusp in a solar natal chart for Aries. Those are the kind of the limitations and restrictions connected with Aries, is really being submissive, passive, or letting the other person be strong. They're the ones that often have to be in command, and ones that have to be the stronger one in the relationships, I believe. Now, in many cases, they are, and also the thing about Aries too is that, Aries can, of course, be very confrontational and combative. And as I stated before, they will often stand up for you if somebody's giving you a raw deal and saying derogatory, negative things to you, giving you a hard time. Aries can be the ones often that will stand up for you, but they'll also be quick to let you know if you're a foe or adversary. You often, Aries people, I'll tell you one thing about them. You're going to know generally where you stand with them. You're usually not going to have much difficulty in understanding whether they are your ally or they are your adversary. And the thing about Aries too is that they can often be argumentative and disputatious, and they often like to have a good debate with the person that they're in that close friendship or significant other situation with. May gives them that testosterone boost, who really knows. But Aries generally are not known for being passive. Again, they may, if you're not at least nearly as strong or or close to being as strong in terms of your personality and character, what have you, they may be very disappointed and may actually resent you for it. They may have that anathema to weakness. Aries, I see them really, of all the zodiac signs, perhaps the personification of courage and fortitude. And you really, if you're in a relationship with Aries, you might have difficulty in keeping up with them as far as the energy level goes and what they're doing and their vitality. If you're in a significant other situation with them, you're in a sexual, intimate relationship with Aries, sexually, you may not may have difficulty keeping up with them unless, of course, you got Scorpio prominent or Aries yourself prominent. Now, the thing is, I mean, of course, sexually, Aries being ruled by Mars, their sexual libido and appetite, of course, could be very prodigious. And also, Aries can often be averse to a subordinate or subservient position. They may have more difficulty than most if they feel that someone in that relationship is being very dictatorial, authoritative, or they're just trying to boss them around. And Aries, well, I mean, so it's really important. It might be downright imperative if you're with an Aries to, if you got to add, if you want them to do something for you, to do it in a kind of a gentle way where you're not being dictatorial, you're not coming across as too bossy or authoritative. Aries too, and if you're driving with them, remember, because of the combative nature, I would say Aries of all the zodiac signs obviously would have the most propensity for road rage. So they are ones, I mean, if you're in a vehicle with them, you know, be careful if someone cuts them off, because they are the ones, actually, I would say, of all the 12 zodiac signs that would actually go after the driver, like say if somebody cut in front of them or what have you. And also, if you're Aries, a person you're connected with, whether it's in a close friendship or if they're a significant other, what have you, if you go to bars with them frequently, understand that they probably would be the ones too that would be most likely, of all the zodiac signs, to get embroiled in a bar room brawl. My understanding, there was a story about, many of you may have remembered, he's now deceased, for former pro football player Lyle Alzado, a son in Aries, that he got into it. He's a very young age too, and he was in some bar or something, and he got into it with at least one of the bouncers, and he apparently was winning the fight with them. And Aries is just not, you know, of all the signs, they're not afraid to mix it up with someone. But at the same time, if you're at a nightclub or a bar with them and you're their date and somebody is giving you a hard time, they'll often be the ones that'll intervene, and they'll get up and say, you know, leave my friend alone or what have you. So I mean, they are not, you know, known to be cowards. So anyway, now the thing about it is too, if Aries is in, say, in the work situation, relationship, say if they're in a manager or supervisor position, they're often going to be the ones to actually help the subordinate workers because they are so active and action oriented. They have such difficulty in being stagnant. It's almost like it's imperative for them to keep moving and doing something, and they apply this often at their workplace and place of employment. Now also too, if you're in, the thing about it is, Aries, given as impatient and hurried as they are, will often be more than punctual in relationship situations, often will arrive early as opposed to simply being on time. And it's probably very important that you need to be there at least on time, given if you have to meet an Aries somewhere, because Aries can, of course, they're notorious for being very impatient. And also too, they may despise it more than most if someone is prevaricating or lying to them, because they like to be about really being honest and forthcoming about things, and very ingenuous, because they just like to put everything out there. And when they want to speak what they feel is the outspoken truth. So duplicity and deception may not go very far in a relationship. with this sign. They often will call you out on this in a heartbeat. If they think you're beguiling them, or you're being any remotely deceptive or deceitful or duplicitous or what have you, they will often be the ones to come right confront you head on regarding this. So and also, too, Aries is similar to Leo, I think, in terms of being magnanimous and generous. They probably not, I would say Leo is the most generous of the zodiac signs, but Aries is probably not far behind. They are generally not stingy or frugal monetarily. They can often be good for loans in a pinch. As long as you're not taking advantage of them, because Aries, of course, as they'll call you out on virtually anything, you likely will be called out on something if they feel there's any chance that you're using them or taking advantage of them. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Aries Relationships Part 2. Stay tuned next time, where I'll be talking about Taurus Relationships Part 2. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.